We always think of history as this messy, chaotic thing, right? But what if it wasn't? What if I told you that a huge chunk of French history might be, well, a little too perfect? I mean, really think about it. What if a piece of history was so neat, so symmetrical, that it stopped looking like, real, messy life and started looking more like a carefully drawn up plan?
Okay, so let's get into it. The whole theory really zeroes in on this one specific 393-year period in the French monarchy. And the reason why is because this period just seems, well, almost mathematically perfect.
So check this out. The timeline is just perfectly bookended. It kicks off in the year 929 with the death of a king named Charles III, and it ends exactly 393 years later in 1322 when the reign of King Charles IV wraps up. A Charles to a Charles. Right away, that clean start and finish is our first little hint that something might be a bit too tidy here. But okay, that's just the start. Here's where it gets really weird. That 393-year block of time, it splits into three, and I mean perfectly identical sections. Each one is exactly 131 years long. Three equal parts. I mean, come on. That's a level of precision you just do not find in the chaos of real history. All right, so let's dig a little deeper. We're going to zoom in on those second and third sections of the timeline. That's the period from 1060 all the way to 1322. Because this is where the theory points to an even stranger pattern, this time involving the kings themselves. So for more than 250 years, 2.5 centuries, the names of the kings were just unbelievably consistent. Seriously, with only one tiny exception, an infant king who died after just a few days, every single monarch was named either Philip or Ludwig, and they often just alternated back and forth in this really strange repeating rhythm. And it doesn't stop there. The symmetries just keep coming. Within the same period, you find pairs of Philips and Ludwigs who just happened to reign for the exact same number of years. You've got Philip I and Ludwig VII, boom, 49 years each. Philip II and Ludwig IX, yep, 44 years each. You see what I mean? The coincidences are really starting to stack up. Okay, but this next one is maybe the most startling pattern of all. If you take all the kings named Philip and add up their total time on the throne, and then you do the same for all the kings named Ludwig, the totals are identical. 166 years each. Not close, exactly the same. So the kings' names and reigns are one thing, that's a pretty big clue. But according to the theory we're looking at, it's the names of their queens where this whole thing goes from coincidence to something else entirely. This is where it just seems to break down. Here's the pattern, and it's pretty shocking. It looks like queens with a certain set of names, they only marry kings named Philip. And queens with a completely different set of names, they only marry kings named Ludwig. Okay, so for the Philips, their wives' names are pulled from this one exclusive list. We're talking names like Bertha, Elizabeth, Maria, and here's the kicker. 3 Philips in a row all married a Johanna. And then you look at the Ludwigs. Their wives' names? Pulled from a totally separate, totally distinct list. You've got Blanche, Adelheid, Marguerite. And yeah, you guessed it. Just like the Philips, 3 Ludwigs in a row all married a Marguerite. Now, the person who came up with this theory makes a really bold claim about all this. They say that in the messy political reality of royal marriages, this kind of strict separation of names, where there is literally zero overlap between the two groups, is, and I'm quoting here, impossible in reality. So from there, the theory points to what it basically calls a historical copy and paste. The idea is that maybe some of these historical figures aren't unique individuals at all, but are actually just templates, reused centuries apart. So what's the evidence for a crazy idea like that? Well, the theory asks us to compare King Philip I, he's from our neat and tidy timeline, with a guy named King Pippin III who lived 300 years earlier. The argument is that their life stories are practically identical. Let's run down the list. They both had a wife named either Bertha or Bertrada. Both of them rejected their first wife. Both got into major disputes over whether their marriage was even legitimate. They both had a son named Karl, and to top it all off, they lived to be almost the exact same age. The theory's point is that these parallels are just way too specific to be an accident. Okay, so all of these patterns, the timelines, the names, the copied lives, they all build up to the theory's final and maybe most astonishing claim. This is the piece of evidence that's presented as the ultimate proof that this history wasn't lived, it was designed. 328, that number, 328 years, is what the source calls the miracle of the Capetians. It represents a period of, get this, absolutely perfect, unbroken succession from father to son. I mean, just let that sink in for a second. For over 3 centuries, the French crown just passed smoothly from father to eldest living son. No civil wars over the throne, no one trying to steal it, no succession crises, nothing. You look at other monarchies, and they struggle to keep a stable line going for just a few generations. But France? They supposedly pulled it off for 328 years straight. The source basically says this is absurd, that it's a historical impossibility, a perfect story, an ideal that was written back into the past.
So that's what we're left with. It's a pretty provocative thought, right? When we look back and see this kind of perfect symmetry, these impossible seeming coincidences, a miracle of succession that defies all odds, are we actually looking at history as it happened? Or could we be looking at something else? A masterful work of fiction, designed to create a perfect past that never really was.